Habari ya Johnny, Molweni, Taubona. Depending on where you are in this beautiful country of Africa, welcome. Welcome to the Data Protection Africa Network. Before we proceed, we just want to advise you that this meeting is recorded. Wherever you are, please type in the chat. Let us know where you are. Let us raise up. Arise Africa. If you're excited, please type in the chat box. Type A-R-I-S. Arise. Let us see the energy in this future state. Take a moment to look at all those locations. I see South Africa, yes, Botswana, Zambia, Nigeria. Today we are united by a common purpose, a purpose to revolutionize the data protection landscape of Africa. You are not just starting any other virtual event, but you are witnessing the birth of a movement that will tell the world that Africa will not just be following international trends on data protection, but will be leading them and setting the standards. Today we are going to tell you about our core values, our principles, and introduce to you the team behind this great initiative. You'll hear about the roadmap for the coming year and all the partners that you are forging and that you will forge. Most importantly, we are here to talk about you. Yes, I mean you guys. You are the key stakeholders in this. Your expertise, your passion, your commitment, and your ethical data practices. We are building a thriving network of data protection, and we need your energy and ideas. You will hear about opportunities to volunteer, contribute, and lead. Grab these opportunities with both hands. This is your chance. This is your chance to be a pioneer in the data ecosystem of Africa. So get ready. Please share your thoughts. Yes, I can see Noah at Deroji. Thank you. Please share your thoughts. We are going to be we want this to be more interactive and engaging. So during the question and answer segment, please raise your hands, but make sure that your camera and your mic are on. Are you ready to arise and lead Africa? Without wasting time, ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker is our visionary, our leader, Ms. Amaka Ibeji. She will share the vision and mission for the network. We don't want to miss the core values, but before she makes her way to the stage, let's just listen to her bio. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Innocent, and thank you all for being here today as we shape the future of Africa's data protection community. Now, it's my honor to introduce a visionary leader, a trailblazer in digital trust, and the driving force behind the DPO Africa Network. Amaka Ibeji is a globally recognized digital trust leader, AI governance expert, and data protection compliance advisor. With over 15 years of experience at Microsoft, Cruise LLC, UBA, and Deloitte, she has shaped privacy and AI strategies worldwide. A boardroom-certified qualified technology expert, QTE, and one of the 100 brilliant women in AI ethics for 2025, Amaka leads PALS Hub, serves on the advisory board for Privacy Hub Africa, and writes a weekly column on digital trust for African boards in Business Day Online. Today, she takes the stage to share the vision, values, and future of the DPO Africa Network, a platform built to amplify African voices, strengthen regulatory capacity, and build a sustainable culture of digital trust at scale. Now, with energy and excitement, let's give a resounding welcome to
Thank you, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm excited about where we are today. My name is Amaka Ibeji. This has been an amazing journey. I was only just looking at the first post we made on DPO Africa Network about 4 weeks ago, and when we officially started posting to calling people to follow our page was 3 weeks ago. And today, look at the number of participants here for our inaugural meeting. The page already has over 700 followers, and we have over 50 volunteers signed up. It says one thing. our vision, our mission, and our positioning resonates with you on the call today, and we believe it will do the same with tons of people out there in Africa. However, you all know it is always said that data is the new gold, the new currency, the new oil. As Africa, we are sitting on a treasure trove. But I always like to say that with great opportunity comes great responsibility. In a world where data drives economies, shapes society, and also defines trust, Africa cannot afford to be left behind. No, we will not be left behind. The time to act is now. The time to lead is now. And that brings me to our vision. What is our vision for DPO Africa Network? Our vision is both ambitious and clear. Our vision is to position Africa as a global leader, yes, a global leader in data privacy, where ethical innovation, personal rights, and digital trust are seamlessly integrated to empower a thriving digital economy. This is a call to action. Like I said, this is ambitious, but it is obtainable. I believe so. To do this, our mission is to build Africa's most influential network. And influential is a key word because we just do not want to grow in numbers, say the largest network. No. We want to make a positive influence. We want to make impact on the continent. We want to be the most influential network of data protection professionals. Yes, you and I. Driving collaboration, innovation, and excellence in privacy practices across the network. This is achievable. We have come this far, but there is so much to be done. We are here to create a network that empowers African DPOs to rise as thought leaders in data protection, not just locally, but globally. We are taking this on a global stage. A network where knowledge flows freely, where ideas spark change, and where collaboration fuels progress. Really, today, Africa stands at a crossroad of opportunities and challenges. Our economies are digitizing rapidly, and data protection laws are emerging across the continent. Ridwan, who is our guest speaker, will expand on this, walking us through the African data protection landscape. Of course, he says he has few insight, but I bet you they are rich insight. Ridwan has been on this journey and no other person would position us to get started except for his insight. However, yet, many organizations, even governments, lack the expertise to effectively navigate this complex terrain. But this is where we all step in. As members of this network, we are more than professionals. We are pioneers. Pioneers who will define what it means to protect privacy in the African context. And when I talk about the African context, no one appreciates the African context like those who have lived experiences. You and I, whether you are an African living in Africa or African in diaspora, your lived experiences is valuable. And with that, we will shape and define what it means to protect privacy in an African context. We are pioneers who will ensure that our continent's data is managed ethically, securely, and in compliance with both local and global standards. To guide us on this journey, I will be expanding on our core values. And our core values we've adopted is an acronym, ARISE, which stands for accountability, resilience, innovation, solidarity, and excellence. You will very soon know that excellence is my favorite, but we cannot get to excellence without going through this. Accountability. We will own our decisions, we will own our actions, and be transparent about what we do. Resilience. Tough times, they say, never last, but tough people do. In the face of challenges, we will adapt and thrive. And we will do this with innovation. I always say we are intelligent and we have the ability to be innovative. We will embrace creative solutions, and this is where context also comes in. We will embrace creative solutions to African unique challenges. We will come up with new novel ideas. However, we will not start by reinventing the wheel. We will take on what is out there. But the goal is not to put a square peg in a round hole. It must fit, and that is why we will turn on our intelligence collaboratively and drive innovative solutions. We will do that. Solidarity. From Nigeria to Niger, Togo to Tanzania, we will ensure that we stand together. From Ghana to Gabon, across the continent, we will stand together, uniting data protection professionals across the continent, irrespective of the barrier of culture or language. The goal is to reach all. And I always say that the Africa in DPO Africa Network is not a label, but a commitment for reach, to bring every African on board and ensure that we have a standard that we can follow. And speaking of standard, excellence, I told you, is one of my favorite. Through innovation, through solidarity, we will set a standard. We will push the boundaries of what is possible. But I always like to say, we cannot exceed expectations if we do not meet expectations. So we would look into compliance. We will meet compliance. However, we will not only look at the letter of the law, but we would look at the spirit of the law. And it is to minimize risk and amplify the potential of the data that we are collecting for the common good of every African. These values will be the foundation of our network, driving us towards our goals. They will shape our decisions, oh yes, our actions, and our collective impact. That being said, I want to introduce also to you all the team behind the scene that has brought us this far. There's been a lot of work behind the scene, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you the team that has made today's event possible and the team that would help us forge ahead into the future. Starting off, We have Melissa Chassis. Melissa will lead our research and publication, not only focusing on knowledge creation, but also knowledge dissemination. We want all of our impact, all of our innovative solution to get to the ends of the continent, irrespective of language or cultural barriers. Melissa will be championing this. Ronald. Ronald comes with a rich experience, a technology background, having a stint in cybersecurity. Also passionate about data protection. Ronald will be leading our digital initiatives. He will be spearheading it and shaping how we evolve even on the digital space. To start off, a lot of our interactions will be online because we do not want travel to be a barrier to communicating and collaborating. And Ronald will be on the back end, ensuring that we have seamless experiences online. Next up is Innocent. You've seen him already. He's the go-to person for all of our members to ensure that your experiences in this network is aligned with our promises. Innocent will be driving outreach. Innocent will be ensuring that we're reaching those we need to reach and pulling people into this network, because we cannot achieve our visions and our mission alone. Next up is Alan. Trust me, this team won't be complete without Alan. Alan comes from the regulatory side of the house, and as DPOs, one of the things we constantly do is first be a bridge between the regulators and the organizations that we serve. And we're glad to have someone from the regulatory side of the house. Alan is going to help us navigate the regulatory landscape across Africa, help us engage with the authorities, so that we're sure, like I mentioned, that we will not only meet expectation, we can now go above and beyond. And I always like to say that it's going to be a feedback loop. As we innovate, we would also be communicating with the authorities so that, number one, we can be sure that we are meeting expectations. And then, because excellence is in our values, we will not stop at that. We will go above and beyond. But let me be clear. The vision is bigger than any one person or a leadership team. Real change will come when each of us takes ownership. This network is yours. Yes. And it will thrive with your commitment. It will thrive with your expertise. And it will thrive with your passion. Oh yes, we need the passion. So I ask you today to be more than a member. I want to challenge you to be a leader. Volunteer your skills, champion our cause, and help us build regional chapters. We want to ensure that we have representation across all of Africa. At least one person should be from each country. So if you have someone in your network on the Francophone side of the house, please reach out to them. Tell them to join. If you have some, we will be sharing broadly where our volunteers, the countries they are representing. If you find a country not on that list and you have a contact, we will trust you to lead and help us bring these people in, so that when we say DPO Africa Network, we mean what we say in terms of the reach we aim to achieve. And we cannot influence without bringing the voices of these leaders on the table. So we are counting on you. We want you to help us to also advocate for data privacy, because in this we will define Africa's future in data privacy. This, you would soon very well know that it's beyond a professional network. It is a movement the future generation will look back on and say, this was the moment where Africa claimed its place as a leader in data protection. I like to wrap up by saying, let us rise together, let us lead together, and let's make history together. Thank you very much for listening. I know you all can't wait for our guest speaker, Ridwan. And before Ridwan makes his way on stage, I want to welcome you to listen to Ridwan's rich bio. Ridwan, we're going to bring Ridwan on stage, but for now, let's listen in on Ridwan's bio. One more thing before I leave. This session is intended to be as interactive as possible. We're not here to speak to you. We're here to build collaboration and have conversation. So once Ridwan is done speaking, Innocent will be back on stage with Ridwan to take your questions. And in taking your questions, we want you to use the raise hand function, and we will be bringing you on stage to ask your questions. When you come on stage, please turn on your mic, turn on your camera. Let's have a conversation. And that's not the only opportunity to come on stage. Once we're done with questions on Ridwan's presentation, if you have questions or on the network on what we're doing, Melissa is your go-to person. Melissa will come right after that. Melissa will be talking about our volunteer tracks, and she would also be leading the open mic session where we want to bring you all on stage and have conversation. Ask those questions. We may not have the answers to all of those, but you are a leader in this movement. And so we would also be seeking answers from you, looking at getting also your input as we shape the network. And once we're done with that, we may not be able to cover everything, every thought today, but we will take notes. We would also have Ronald come walk us through the roadmap. We've set a roadmap for the year, but there is more we can do to double click on it and make it more actionable so that we can begin to make significant progress on our promises. And of course, Alan will wrap it up, talking to us on sponsorship and partnership. With that being said, without much ado, let us bring on stage Ridwan. But first of all, let us listen to Ridwan's bio. Thank you so much for listening and hoping you're having a wonderful session. Thank you.
We are delighted to have Ridwan join us today. Ridwan leads the AI governance and tech policy teams at TechHive Advisory and is the director at the Center for Law and Innovation. He advises on global data protection laws, program implementation, and monitoring. Ridwan holds a master's in law and technology from Tilburg University. He is a policy advisor and researcher. Ridwan is also the co-founder of Privacy Lens Africa and Privacy Bar and Bants, where he uses visualization and podcasting to draw attention to data protection in Africa. He is designated as a country leader in data and data protection by Who is Who Legal, a fellow of information privacy with the International Association of Privacy Professionals, IAPP, and an expert at the Data Protection Unit of the Council of Europe. Please make welcome Ridwan to the stage as we explore Africa data protection landscape.
Good day, whatever part of the world you are. It's such a pleasure to be part of this inaugural session. Thank you, Amaka, and the rest of the squad for the invitation. I'm so excited to be part of you today. Joining this interesting conversation. Amaka said something about Ridwan trying to share just a little. Yeah, I mean that's what I said. I said I want to share one or two things that I know about what's happening on the continent, and I'm really so delighted to be part of you today. The things I've been asked the thing I've been asked to talk about. It's one of my favorite things to do, to be honest. I've been working in the space for a while, and I think I'm gonna have one or two things to say. But first, I'd like to say congratulations to everyone who made it today for this session. It's such an incredible movement from the day the announcement was made and racking up the amount of followership that has been, but more importantly, the kind of offering that the network is going to give everyone who is a member. But interestingly, I can also say I have the privilege of knowing Amaka for the longest time now. And aside being a doer, aside being a super accomplished human being, when she says she's excellent, when she says excellent means everything, it means everything, and it's not a suggestion. So I say there's so much to learn, there's so much to try, there's so much to conquer. But more importantly, as data protection officers in Africa, we have a big responsibility in our hand. First, to document our stories, but more importantly, how can we share, how can we connect, how can we build bridges, how can we provide support to each other. So, that being said, I'm going to get into my presentation today, and I'm going to be looking at data protection in Africa. Essentially, my approach to this conversation is to take it from a more operational view, which is what are the things that has happened, what are the trends that have emerged in the last few years on the continent. And what this essentially means for me is that for us to be able to get a sense of where we are right now, we also need to get a sense of where we're coming from. So you're going to see more visualization and words, but we're going to go through this together. So data protection in Africa is still almost like a recent thing, depending on how old you are. We didn't have our first data protection law until 2001 in Cape Verde. And since then, we've seen an incredible number of African countries who have adopted the data protection law. In the past, if you read old articles about data protection in Africa, you probably see reviews that will say things like, oh, this country doesn't have a specific data protection law, but there are sector-specific laws that have a data protection laws. But we've gone from, having that at the country level to now looking at things even on the continental level. Now we've gone from Cape Verde being the first country in 2001 to now we're having 40 countries on the continent with laws, at least as of December 2024. Also, we didn't have a first data protection authority until 2007, so you can imagine having a law. And interestingly, you had Cape Verde, you had countries like Seychelles, quite a number of other countries, Burkina Faso had their law right after Cape Verde in those first 6 years. But we didn't have a first authority until 2007. And from 2007 to 2014, we're talking from going from 7 authorities to now having about 34 of them. Interestingly, in 2014, the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Protection of Personal Data also, came out. But unfortunately, because it needed about 15 ratifications before it could take effect, this didn't happen until 2023. So now it's fully in effect. But the interesting thing is, before and after then, so many countries have gone ahead to, introduce their own data protection laws that veers completely from veers away a bit from what the convention was suggesting, to countries taking their own approach and things they feel was more in their own national interest. So that gives us a sense of what the journey has been like, where we're coming from. And this visualization I'm sharing is just to give us a sense of how we've made a progress from 2001. This kind of stops in 2020, but I have a whole visualization that extends to 2025 and see the number of countries that have enacted their data protection laws and the timeline. We still have quite a number of countries with draft laws. So whether it's Sierra Leone, whether it's Liberia, Gambia, Namibia, who is close to finally having its law, South Sudan, who has a draft law. So we're going to see over the next few years again more countries in Africa, from the 40 that we have now to now say, maybe all of the countries or more than enough of the countries on the continent now have some sort of data protection law in place. So I put this this visualization here to tell an important story. So if you look at this was done by Paul Swash, a really amazing person. For those who probably will be interested. So he did like a whole visualization of what the data protection landscape in Africa looked like. This was 2019. If you look at 2019, you'll see countries like Kenya had just a draft law. Countries like Ethiopia had a draft law. So, and if you move over just next to 2021, you can see that bit of variation where you now see Uganda, you see Kenya, where the color shade is changing, showing essentially now all of these countries who just then had like draft laws, or some of these countries who didn't have a law as of 2019. Now they have a law. Similarly, you see a country like Egypt who didn't have a law until 2020 as well. And just next to it, it's a more recent infographics, essentially detailing as at November 2024 the number of countries we lost. This particular visual is missing Cameroon because Cameroon introduced it in December, which now gives us a sense of, again, like I said, we've gone from less than half of the country in Africa has data protection. No, we've gone from that's no longer our history. We now have 40 strong countries with laws, 34 of them with an established authority or at least designated some sort of authority to enforce the law. So, what are the key things that have emerged in the last 2 decades? Whether you say 2 decades or you say 3 decades, some interesting things that like we've seen. Essentially, look at what we've seen with new laws on the continent, which it's like a key component of how things have evolved. Now, again, more countries on the continent have laws, and as we speak, there are still countries working on some sort of like a draft law. And we've also seen quite a number of countries who say, you know what, these laws when we created it, they were meant for a different set of problems. But now, we're in that place where we needed to just amend it. So if you look at Seychelles, if you look at the first iteration of the data protection law, it didn't look like data protection as you know it right now. It basically didn't have so many components of what you typically see from a conventional data protection law. Cape Verde had reasons to amend its law. Mauritius had reasons to amend its law. Same with Botswana last year. Seychelles has a more modern data protection law that passed or enacted in 2023. And we have more countries from Tunisia, Senegal, Ghana, who have also been mooting, even South Africa more recently, who have also been mooting the idea of also making changes to their laws to make them more advanced, to make them deal with newer problems. We've also seen an increase in the number of whether you're creating a new authority or you're designating a data protection authority within an existing authority. So typically from the Convention 108, for example, to even regional laws like the ECOWAS Supplementary Act, the AU Malabo Convention, for example, one of the key things you see or the language it uses is the need for an independent authority. But then we've also seen situations where some countries basically just say, rather than create a new authority, find a new funding, appointing new personnel, we are just going to designate an existing authority. So like the IT one, like the communication authority, to take the lead. And what you see those authorities then do is just to create like a whole section within their body to then say, you know what, you will have the responsibility to take data protection. In Rwanda, for example, is the cybersecurity authority. If you look at Eswatini, you look at Zimbabwe, you see that it's somewhere domiciled within the telecommunication authority. South Africa, the authority has like a dual mandate, one to access information and the other for data protection. So we've also seen sanction and enforcement emerged. I know one of the metrics a whole lot of people try to see data protection in Africa, and how they also assess data protection authorities is to say, you know what, since the law has been passed, they've not issued a sanction. But what you see or what we miss sometimes is when these authorities come, data protection is not at such a mature stage as we try to compare with other parts of the world. And for the authorities too, because of constraint and also so many challenges that they are first mostly prioritizing creating awareness before they get into enforcement loop. But what I can say for sure is as far back as 2014, because I keep like a whole database of enforcement tracking in Africa, and I know my database go as far back as 2014, where we've seen authorities that have been enforcing, whether it's soft, whether it's fines. But the interesting thing is, is a substantial part of data protection laws in Africa have some sort of criminal penalty, provisions in them. So that's also like an interesting spin. But we're also seeing authorities who have put out guidelines, regulations, useful documents to provide clarity. Some have also provided implementation documents to further help the ecosystem, while some haven't done so much around it, to be honest. I think one interesting example I like to cite is Rwanda, for example, which is the first African country that has contractual clauses in its data protection law, but who has then gone ahead to publish its own version of a standard contractual clause. And it's a really simple, easy to read document. I'm also a big fan of the writing style. So yeah, we've seen that. We've seen authorities put out documents even as far back as 2020 around things like AI and healthcare, like we see in Mauritius. Morocco, for example, has two documents on facial recognition technology. Senegal has a whole document of the use of facial recognition within workplace. So Africa has been on top of some of this conversation even before they become mainstream in other parts of the world. Another interesting thing that I've seen is in 2019, for example, Morocco issued a moratorium, which is basically like a suspension or a temporary ban on the use of facial recognition technology. Again, this predates the EU AI Act before AI became a mainstream conversation. So whether we are riding on that same vibe with the same speed that it needs, that's a different conversation. But I just needed to point out these things to sort of give us some sort of perspective. We're also seeing court judgments shaping the conversation from Nigeria to Uganda to Tanzania to Kenya, for example, where some of these laws also have given wider impacts to the ecosystem. Take Nigeria, for example. A couple of years ago, an adequacy list, which has strong implication on data protection law or international data transfer, was published. And some people went to court to say, you know what, some of the countries on this list do not have a data protection law, don't have a data protection authority. So how do you find them adequate? And then the court said, you know what, bin the entire list, go back, do a country by country assessment, and publish an entirely different list, which has had a big implication on international data flow in Nigeria, for example. You've seen a judgment from Tanzania, that's just as last year, where the court has also asked that some provisions of the law should be amended. You see also something in Nigeria where the court has also said, you know what, this particular document that you've published, you need to go back, go redraft it, and that's having a big implication on mandatory registration requirements in that particular country. So cross-border data transfer is another interesting conversation, and I like this a lot because there's so many moving parts. From few countries in the past, Mauritius, Morocco, that has chased EU adequacy decision. I call it like it's elusive. But interestingly, just last year during the NATPA event in Kenya, an EU delegate or representative announced that they're currently considering Kenya for an adequacy decision, which it's going to be so strategic economically. But before that, the UK has also said it's reviewing its adequacy list to also prioritize a country like Kenya, Brazil, a couple of other a couple of other countries within that range. So this is giving a sense of, we are also playing a part in the conversation. But beyond that, we're also seeing alternative mechanisms like the cross-border privacy rule, CBPR, also taking ground. So if you look at Seychelles, for example, is the first country within its law that acknowledge cross-border privacy rules. Nigeria also has like a document, and it's been so part of so many conversations with the CBPR, the U.S. Department of Commerce. Last year, Kenya and Nigeria signed like a whole MOU with the Department of Commerce in the U.S. And part of the commitment those countries also made is working together on cross-border privacy rules. But beyond this, you're also seeing African countries who have issued adequacy decisions for each other. Nigeria had an extensive list. Botswana also has a list that includes South Africa and Kenya only. Morocco has a list that didn't have any African countries. Tunisia has a list that contains few African countries. But you're also seeing African countries who have gotten adequacy decision from non-African countries like Serbia, Russia, Bahrain. So it just gives us a sense of what's happening and how we are also playing in this part of the conversation. Of course, there's so much that needs to be done. We're also seeing collaborations between data protection authorities from Senegal to Mali to South Africa, Somalia. They're signing MOUs within themselves. We're also seeing intersection between this mandate and some other mandates like consumer protection, competition law, where, for example, the competition authorities in Africa came together and issued a statement sometimes and said, sorry, we're going to work with data protection authorities, but we're also going to pay attention to data protection authority as part of our surveillance of the digital ecosystem. We're also seeing AI governance and regulation also emerge. We're seeing data protection authorities in Africa playing a very strong role in this. Again, from Morocco to Senegal to Mauritius, they've all done something, whether it's placing a ban, whether it's issuing a document or a regulation or guidelines on how AI should be used. They're not missing in this conversation. international commitments. A lot of African countries have now signed on to so many conventions. Senegal, Tunisia, Morocco, Mauritius, for example, are very actively they've ascended to the Convention 108. And Mauritius, for example, has even ascended to the more recent protocol, 108 plus. So Global Privacy Assembly, they are part of the members. Even Global Privacy Enforcement Network, which is also meant to strengthen cross-border enforcement. A few African countries are showing up on this membership. And also, mandatory registration authorization requirements, also like an interesting thing. I won't get to dwell too much into that, but what you're seeing is an interesting number of African countries with their new laws or the amendment to the laws are making it mandatory that people should register with the authority. I'm not a big fan of it. We're also seeing authorization requirements for many things, whether international data transfer, whether for things like DPI, whether even for things like even starting processing of data in the first place, whether it's authorization, whether it's some form of licensing. These are some of the things that emerging countries like Egypt, for example, who's also going to announce the establishment of this authority very soon. But all of these things have happened without challenges. So from funding to capacity, competence to independence, so awareness is still like a big thing. Absence of political will to make these things really work. Delays in approval and authorization. If you go to certain countries, without mentioning names, to get authorization for processing takes like a very long time. It's a whole bureaucratic process. Even authorization to transfer data. And if you look at it from a functional point of view, it simply means you may not be able to do business because you simply can't engage that vendor outside of the country because you simply don't have the authorization to do so. Also some DPAs have not been so transparent in their activities. They don't publish their annual reports. They issue sanctions. You don't see decisions being published. And big shout out to the folks in Kenya, for example, Mauritius, typically publish their decisions, their reasoning, and not just news edits. But also, so we need to do more. It also means about 19 other countries don't have an authority in any way to enforce the law. So all of these things are like a key part of what we are seeing. So yeah, basically, I'm just trying to tell a story of how, again, when we speak about enforcement, a lot is actually happening. I think one thing we've not done well is to refine our experience. In Angola, for example, and I really like singling out Angola in this case. A couple of years ago, there was a sanction of about over 500,000 to a commercial against the commercial bank for violating the data protection law, which currently, at least from my database of enforcement, it's like the highest so far. And we've seen from Kenya to Nigeria to South Africa, year on year, it's increasing. So again, this sort of gives us a sense of a lot is happening. Again, what I think we've not done well is to refine our experience. So I have a lot of things to say about what we're going to see over the next few years, and I've tried to put them together here. So at this point, I think I'm going to try and keep quiet, and then Innocent, and if you have questions, we can please speak around them. Like I said, I just have very little insight to share, and I hope just with very little things that I've been able to share, it gives us like a bigger picture about what is happening, the role we need to play as data protection officers, because we are like the custodians of what happens to an extent, and need like that collaboration across board, and why a platform like this could be like a veritable vehicle to help us drive some of these conversations. Thank you again for your patience, for listening, and thank you for the invitation of our kind rest of the team. I'm just going to keep quiet right now. Thank you.
Can you stop sharing, Ridwan, and we'll still love to see your face while Innocent comes back on.
Now, thank you very much. Amaka. Thank you very much, Ridwan. That was very, very insightful. You can hear me? Just confirm. Ridwan, can you hear me? Your mic. Ridwan,
Yes, I can hear you.
if you can hear me, just confirm. Perfect.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, yes, let's talk about Arise: accountability, resilience, innovation, solidarity, and excellence. Now, the question that I've got for you, Ridwan, is that what are the major challenges that DPOs in Africa are facing, or in the African data protection ecosystem?
I mean, there's so much. Again, every DPO here can tell you one of the few things they face, and it's not a problem unique to Africa. It's first how do you even get buy-in from your management. You know, sometimes DPOs something is just entitled. They are not giving you the resource you need to actually get the job done. So getting buy-in could be like a real hustle. But if you even navigate, getting buy-in, getting people across boards or across the teams to even be able to help you support some of the things you're trying to operationalize could be a grand hustle. Then when you're done with that, you don't have to deal with regulator. With the regulator sometimes who probably also don't are not so well grounded. I mean, for lack of a better word. So you're saying, oh, we need to do it this way, and your regulator is saying, no, you're going to do it this way. And then, and sometimes when you look at some of the things pushed out, I'm really not being critical of regulators, but some of them really lack practical or operational relevance. So you have to deal with all of those things. So these are like common challenges. But then there's also like even level of like being able to bring the competence on board. People need to learn. People need to know practical implications of what they need to do. So there's still like a whole skill gap that even DPOs need to build out outrightly competence to be able to do the navigate and do the things they need to do. It's gone beyond registration and we need to chill. No, registration is just one thing. Oh, we need to file an audit. No, it's not just audits. There's so much like building a privacy program is like a whole marathon. Like you're never done with it. So all of these things have to come into play. These are some of the challenges that they have.
Yeah, we still have a long way, and I think this association this network is going to come and try and fill some of the gaps that you have identified, especially from a practical perspective where we have to share notes, etc., among other things. But I'll move on to the next question. You have mentioned something to do with artificial intelligence, and whenever I hear about artificial intelligence, I see the future. What is the future of data protection in Africa, according to how you see it?
I mean, I wrote an article that I published on the IEPB, with IEPB rather, and basically what I was basically saying is for us in Africa, it's like the whole EU AI had, Korea as as an AI specific law. I genuinely do not think we need a specific AI law, and even if we need it, we need to be careful about what our approach should be. But I think if our priority or pain point is maybe, for example, we're not concerned about how we can use it and then protect people against the risk, then I think so many countries have existing body of laws. Like think about product safety laws, consumer protection, competition law, data protection, a bunch of other laws that regulate other domains, even like things like human rights. So why are we not starting from there? If we need to go as far as like, creating like some sort of like, I call it, I forgot the name. Basically, authorities coming together where they can pool resources, share their knowledge, and not do joint investigations. Um, we can do something like that, which means we don't have to worry about a new law. A new law means new authority. A new authority means new funding line, which is not available because even the current authorities are not well funded. A new authority also means building competence right on, which also is not something that is readily available relative to the risk that is available. So, I mean, I think we need to rethink our own approach what this should look like. But I think data protection authorities are likely going to emerge as a de facto authority when it comes to AI governance. So, I mean, if it's fine, I'm more than happy to share the article I wrote on AI and what data protection authorities in Africa are actually doing currently. That's published on the IPP. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, there is Noah. Noah, would you like to come on stage? Whilst we wait for Noah, the last question that I have for you is any word of advice, maybe in 2 sentences, any word of advice to the data protection officers who are new to this data protection ecosystem?
Honestly, I'm probably going to say something you've probably heard for the longest time is that there's so much you need to continue to invest in terms of competence, in terms of building capacity, because I'm going to like what I can assure you is in data protection the learning is endless. There are always like new materials coming out. Like last week, what I was reading was about OECD published a document on quantum computing, which also means the nature of our job is changing. The skill set required to even do our job is changing. Certification, yes, is one thing; it gets you to the doorstep, but it's not proficient. It's not evidence of proficiency. So we need to like grind out, do the dirty job, build our competence outrightly, DIY things, whether it's joining communities, whether it's collaborating, whether it's being part of really operational trainings and learnings, I think it's going to go a long way in actually building right competence. So, some things still happen. Some conversations still happen, and you're like, no, we should have gone past this. This 2025. These conversations are like things we should be having in 2017. But they still do happen, and it's not unique to Africa, because you see some ridiculous things in other parts of the world as well. But my point is, I think for us, our priority will be, let's build our competence, let's be part of networks like this, where we have communities that are invested in building capacity, where we can share our pain points, where as a team, as a community, we can pull and solve problems together. You can ask questions, people can provide different perspectives. So I think that would be like a good place to start from.
Well said, Ridwan. I'm sure everyone we can agree with me that, especially for our jurisdictions such as Zimbabwe, which have just started to enforce or to start on the chain on the data protection, we have so much to learn from our colleagues in the rest of the continent. Now, I think there is Babaloki, I know it's Mr. Mokete. I don't know if he can be brought on stage.
He's on stage. He needs to unmute his mic to ask his question.
All right. If you can hear us, please unmute your mic and also put your video so that we can see you.
Okay. I hope the video is going to come on now. All right. Yeah. Thank you for this platform, and thank you for the presentation, Ridwan. I think you have mentioned so many things, in terms of where we are as Africa in terms of the data protection. But, for Botswana, we recently enacted it in January of this year. It has been in transition since 2018, but now it's in effect now. So I think my question, whenever I come across these kind of platforms or webinars is, you just touched on the skill set, the learning, the education and all, but it is not coming out, clear in terms of, okay, if you are to go for certifications, for example, which ones can people probably go into to try and, fast track their way into this, moving trend? Because one challenge that is already there is obviously the fact that people might have been doing compliance from the legal perspective and all, but now when it comes to data privacy, maybe now they need to now go into, educating themselves, getting certifications and all. Which are those ones that are predominantly, good for one to, start with and then, continue with the learning?
Over to you, Ridwan. That is very clear.
All right, thanks. Like I said, certifications are always great. They get you to the doorstep, but again, they don't confer proficiency. But then if you ask me to speak, I think for me, I always say, optimize for global certifications. And that's also because I think we need to play on the global stage. I know there are like countries, for example, where they're like localized knowledge, localized certifications. In Nigeria, for example, the Data Protection Authority recently approved some sort of local certification body. Everything is relevant. But I have my own bias. I have my own bias for like the IEPP, for example, because it's the biggest privacy professional body in the world, which simply means some of the things that the certification, whether you choose to stay in Botswana or you decide to move to Namibia or you decide to move to any other part of the world, you simply can still essentially use the same knowledge and still basically transition easily. So I'm always like a big fan of, I don't think as lawyers, if you already have a decent knowledge of data protection law, you may not necessarily do the e-course, like a CIPP, which is European Data Protection Law. But you may start from maybe like the management, which gives you like some sort of like an operational perspective of some of the things that you will do.
For the sake of time, I'll go to the last question, a question by Noah Adiroju. So his question is as follows. The advent of AI, which has given rise to an unprecedented level of data collection and the processing, and there have been notable infraction of data protection principles. Take, for instance, these big tech social media platforms like LinkedIn, Meta, using data of people on the platform to train their modules. So his question is that how do they get this consent? How do they get this consent for processing most of them? Because the consent automatically given, which is against DP principles. Why is DPA in Africa not moving against this trend? I don't know if you have captured that question.
Yeah, heard that. I mean, I think so. Not to appear like I'm trying to simplify the question or simplify the problem. I mean, it's not just big tech thing. There are also like African companies who are actually training, models with personal data as well. And I think this principle should still apply. These companies or whoever it is that is responsible still have like obligation under data protection law the same way they have under product safety laws and consumer protection laws. Which means if a data protection authority can establish a violation, they should enforce the law. But I think why maybe authorities in Africa have probably been patient is also that they are probably also trying to understand the problem. So two examples I'll give. In Cote d'Ivoire, or one example rather, the authority has put out like a public consultation. For example, people submit their opinion. They're actually trying to understand the AI. So, and that's like taking a really proactive approach to say, learn first before you start going after it. So, and I appreciate that model because, I mean, one thing is going after things to just kill it outrightly when it can also benefit you people. But I think there are signals, there's risks, there are dangers, which I think that needs to be dealt with. And there are authorities that have the power to do this. So, yes, I agree. They have the mandate to do this and they need to solve these problems. But I'm not going to get into the conversation of, whether consent should be the lawful basis always, whether consent will be needed every time for things like this. And that's a different conversation. In any event, if a violation can be established, the same we've seen with different data protection authorities have opened investigation against big LLMs companies, I think we can definitely do the same in Africa. And like I said, in 2019, Morocco literally placed the ban on the use of facial recognition technology for a whole calendar year. So whether we can do it or not is not a problem. We've seen it being done before. Kenya suspended. There was a particular company, an AI company, that was taking the picture of people iris and biometrics. So the question is not whether we can act. Sorry, it's not whether we can act or not. So I think, just those. I just need to point out those ones. Like, there's evidence that things have been done. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Ridwan. So much insightful and very, very insightful. Now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to join me in thanking Mr. Ridwan as he leaves the stage. Thank you so much. Now, I'm going to introduce to you the next speaker, who is going to address the most important part of this session. That is the call for volunteers. Ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome Ms. Melissa Chassi. She's one of the most powerful and upcoming data privacy practitioner in this part of the world, that is in Zimbabwe. If I may have Melissa Chassi on stage, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Innocent, for such a nice introduction. I'd like to thank Ridwan for an amazing and very insightful keynote speech. I learned a lot. So, hello to everyone, to members of the DPO Africa Network and to friends of the DPO Africa Network. I come to you with such an exciting opportunity, a chance to shape the future of data protection in Africa. This is where we're now launching our volunteer program. So we are not looking for helpers. We are looking for visionaries. We are looking for innovators. And we're looking for passionate advocates who can shape the future of data privacy in Africa. Now, when the idea of this network came about, it was premised on a simple but yet powerful idea. And that was to unite data protection officers across the continent as well as privacy professionals in order to create a force for positive change. Now, one of the most important things that we aim to do is to protect the data of African citizens, to ensure that the data is respected, to ensure that it is protected, and to make sure that it is leveraged ethically for use by organizations. So what we've done with the DPO Africa Network is we've created 3 tracks. The first track is research and content. I'm particularly excited about this one as I'm doing it. And this is for our clear communicators, analytical people, and it's an opportunity to be at the forefront of data protection research in Africa. And this is also a place where we will be analyzing policies, looking at data protection legislation across the continent, but most importantly, to make sure that um, the content or the resources we're creating are accessible across languages. The second track is engagement and outreach. Now, this is for our social butterflies, our networkers, and this is an opportunity to connect with members, to connect with the community, and to also ensure that you're managing our social media presence, and as well as mentoring the upcoming professionals in this industry. If you thrive on building relationships and spreading the message far and wide, then we need you here. I just need to let you know that you don't need to be an extrovert in order to flourish in this area. Then finally, we've got our event management. So here we've got organized people who value creating memorable experiences. If this is your calling, you need to come and join us. We need your help in order to coordinate events, to moderate discussions, and just to make sure everything runs smoothly. So this is for online events as well as in-person events. Now, finally, no matter which track you choose, you need to understand that your contribution is invaluable. You will be part of a pioneering movement shaping the future of data protection in Africa. You'll connect with like minded individuals across the continent. You'll gain new skills. You'll have resources to help you while you're doing your work. And you'll make a tangible impact on how data is protected and used ethically in Africa. We stand at a critical juncture in Africa's digital journey. The decisions that we're making today will shape the continent's future for future generations to come. By volunteering to be, by being a part of DPO Africa Network, you're not just giving your time, you're investing in Africa's digital future. Now, my question to you is, are you ready to rise to the challenge? Are you ready to arise with us? Are you ready to be accountable, to be resilient, to be innovative, to stand in solidarity, and to strive for excellence? If so, we welcome you with open arms. Please complete the volunteer form. In the chat, it will be added soon. Together, let's build a safer, more ethical digital Africa. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to the open mic session, and this is an opportunity for the audience to come to the stage and ask your questions, and we will answer them. Just remember to make sure that your mic is on as well as your video is on. And we also have the QR code there to ensure that you can join smoothly. Any questions? Yes, sure, you can type if the environment is not allowing. Yes, the volunteer form. Thank you, Data Privacy Tutor. The volunteer form is already on our LinkedIn page. We will add it again so that it's easily accessible and you can fill it out and join. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who's already signed up. We've had many sign-ups prior to this inaugural event. Please raise your hands to come on stage to ask their questions. Will you post in WhatsApp group as well? Amaka, maybe you can let us know if we're going to have a WhatsApp group or we're sticking to LinkedIn. There, Amaka has already posted the link in the chat. Please sign up. So we've already had some questions coming up before this event. And one of the questions was, who can apply to be a volunteer? And from where we're standing, yes, it's the DPO Africa Network. It's not just for data protection officers.
it's also for privacy professionals, but it's also for people who are interested in the area. Whether you have a technology background or a legal background, or just people who want to understand more and possibly considering a career in privacy. And another question we've had is the volunteer work remote or in person? So most of the volunteer work will be remote. Currently, the team that we have, the people working in Zimbabwe, the people working in Nigeria, in the US, and in the UK as well. So this is not just for Africans who are in Africa, but Africans all over the world. Any other questions? So now I will hand over to Ronald, who will take us through the roadmap.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you for that introduction. And so before I start off, I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you who've made time to join us today. I'll start off again by saying to everybody who's joined, to our colleagues, to partners and friends, that look, welcome to the DPO Africa Network. And again, before I get into the meat of what I'm going to talk about today, I want to again say thank you all for thank everyone. I mean, for that enthusiastic response to our call for volunteers. Again, I think that for me, your willingness to contribute your time and expertise fills me with a lot of hope and excitement for the journey ahead. And so, as part of getting into or highlighting the roadmap for the year, one of the things that I want to talk about, or the key point here, the key takeaway here, is that this roadmap is intended to transform data protection on our beloved continent. And so, as part of the roadmap, we started off with the creation of the DPO Africa Network last month. In February, today is the inaugural event where we've showcased or highlighted the values, our values, which is our RISE values. Again, let me reiterate what RISE means. RISE stands for accountability. It stands for resilience. It stands for excellence. It stands for innovation. And then it also stands for solidarity. And so again, I mean, looking at what we intend to do going forward within this year, in March, we are sort of looking at expanding the network. And so here again, we'll be leveraging social media to sort of highlight the values and the vision of what we intend to do. And the goal will be to attract or get a lot more members to join this professional community. Now, in April 2025, which is 2 months away, the goal will be focused on strategic partnerships, where we are looking at partnering with bodies such as the Privacy Hub Africa, and the goal will be to deepen our knowledge when it comes to information sharing capabilities. In between May and June, I mean, we'll be embarking on the capacity building initiative where we intend to build a learning platform where participants or volunteers can go and then learn everything about data protection, data privacy on the African continent. Now, in July, we will be focusing on community outreach. In August, we're focusing on student clubs, where we'll be looking at partnering with some universities and having interactions with students on campus just to bring to the fore what data protection and data privacy is all about. And for some of these students who want to leave school with a certain idea of getting into data protection or privacy, that is where you can begin to showcase or highlight what data protection and privacy is all about. In September and October, we'll be looking at a regulatory landscape exploration, where we'll be going into some of the data protection acts on the African continent. We'll be looking at some of the legal basis for the establishment of some of these acts across the length and breadth of Africa. In November and December, I mean, we'll be focused on innovation, and here as well, the focus is looking at technologies that are enhancing data protection and privacy on the continent, and so we will delve into things like privacy enhanced technologies, the ones that are applicable, I mean, on the African continent, and how well these technologies can be used to add value to the data protection processes within various organizations on the continent. And then in January 2026, this is where we would have our first anniversary conference. And here as well, the goal will be to bring all of us together for a very insightful session where everybody gets a chance to share insights and experiences as far as data protection on the African continent is concerned. And so again, I mean, given that tall order of things that we have to do, clearly, I mean, we need more volunteers. I mean, Melissa, I don't want to belabor the point with regards calling out for people to volunteer, but it's really important. I mean, that we need people to volunteer your time and expertise to be able to drive all these initiatives that we have put in place month on month. This is very crucial. And again, to highlight the fact that our values are key, and these values will underpin a lot of the activities and actions that we intend to drive and undertake this year. Again, summarizing what ARISE means. ARISE stands for A stands for accountability, R stands for resilience, I stands for innovation, S stands for solidarity, and E stands for excellence. Without much ado, this brings me to the end of my presentation of my session. Without much ado, I'll now invite Alan, our Director for Legal Affairs and Partnerships, to come on stage and share insights within this space.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Ronald, for giving us the roadmap on how we are going to be going through the year as a DPO African Network. And I'm so excited to be part of the network and to be working with everyone. Like what Amaka said in her introductory speech, to say that my main role is that I have got two main functions as the director for legal affairs. My first function is that I will be providing some insights from the regulatory aspect of things on how we as the regulators who are into data protection would want the DPO to work, and also borrowing some insights from our sister regulators, because I also have an opportunity to be attending regulatory meetings across Africa through the network of the African data protection authorities. And my other function is that I'm also responsible for partnerships within the network. We would want to have partners on board, so that when we have got partners, we partner up with organizations, with individuals, so as to make a difference, so as to learn as much as we can from across the board. So if you are in the audience, if you're listening to me, and if you know a good corporate organization or an institution that you would want us to partner up with, so that we can also get sponsorship. And I'm sure you saw that on the slide that Ridwan was presenting. We hope to have a conference next year in January. We also hope to be doing some more webinars during the course of the year. So for us to be able to function, we are not able to do this alone, because together we thrive. We cannot work as an island. We would want to have as many people on board as much as possible. So I'm appealing to each and every one of you to say that if you are a partner, or if you would want to sponsor us, to be able to carry out our initiatives, please reach out to me or reach out to any one of our board members, or reach out to us on LinkedIn, so that we can be able to explore those partnerships. If there are other people that you are unable to approach on our behalf, but that you would want us to approach from our end, if you let us know, or if you're able to help us get an introductory meeting, get us to be able to introduce someone who might be able to help us make a difference, we will be excited to explore that partnership, and we will be excited to receive that sponsorship. No sponsorship is too little. It can be also be in kind. The sponsorship, we're not just looking at the financial sponsorship. We'll accept any sponsorship that can come, that will be able to enable us as a network to be able to make a difference. So that's all that that will be my functions, and I'll be excited to learn more about what you do. If there's someone also in the audience who works for a regulatory authority, or who used to work for a regulatory authority, who would want us, or who would also want to touch base with me, I would appreciate just to sit down and listen, so that as we also publish the trends that will be coming from the regulators from time to time, for your information and for your noting, you may also be aware of what's going on with our regulators on the continent. And as you can see on the slide, we did put our contact details. Please feel free to contact us for any issue relating to the network, or for any recommendations, because like I said, we are going to thrive together. We are unable to do this, so we want to partner up with everyone, either through volunteership, through sponsorship, in any way that you can partner up with the network. We are so excited to have you on board, and we're excited to work up with you, and to say that together we thrive. It will be a new beginning for the data protection ecosystem on the African continent. There's what Amaka is just posted on the chat box about the tech hive that is offering the IAPP certification at an affordable rate, which is for Africans, and that you get an additional $25 off at the end of the month. So that's one of the ways that that through Amaka we managed to to bring this up to you, so that you can also explore and get yourself certified. And thank you so much for listening to me. That's what I had. If I don't have any questions, I will hand over the stage to Amaka. But from the legal desk, that's what I have, and I'm excited. I'm looking forward to working and networking with each and every one of you, and together we are going to thrive. Thank you very much.
Thank you for staying through today's presentation. It also shows resilience, and we want to let you know that this is just the beginning. There's a ton of things we can achieve together, and from me, I cannot wait to see all that we will achieve together. If your questions haven't been answered, please use our email contact to reach us, or send us a DM on LinkedIn. We're reading everything. One more thing is, our website is still under construction. It will be out soon, and we will make that announcement. The last thing that I also wanted to mention is our volunteer onboarding will happen soon. We will communicate that on the LinkedIn page as well. Let me take some comment, giving the novelty. Oh, I see. So in terms of journal, this is from Fortune, a question being asked for Fortune. This would really sit under our research and content, and I know that Melissa is working hard behind the scene to bring this to life. We've got great visions, but we need your support to really land on this goal. We really want to position Africa as a global leader in privacy, and we will take up a number of initiatives as much as we have the resources to land. Okay, the email, I will just put it one more time on screen. So this is a DPO Africa Network at gmail.com. We're still evolving the process of getting this very official, but we'll make do with what we have. and that is speaking to our resilience to make do with what we have while we adapt and thrive. And so, from all of us, I want to say thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Yes, we promised we will be out at the 90 minutes mark, and I think we just achieved that. And that being said, I want to say bye and thank you for now.